Saya entered the busy college corridor, her face hidden behind a smart black helmet and her body shrouded in long, loose garments. Every day was a battlefield, and this helmet was her armor. Whispers followed her with every step, mocking, cruel. She could hear bits of what they were jeering at her. Freak, weirdo, what's she hiding? The bullies wouldn't stop, their words sharp and stabbing, but Sia was quiet, her heart pounding beneath her covered exterior. The helmet was so much more than just a physical covering. It was her home, allowing her to move through the halls of the college without exposing the deep brown skin that would draw even more scorn. She had begun learning early that her appearance made her an automatic victim, and the helmet was her way of dealing with it. But the isolation was smothering. She wanted friends who could be real, someone who would see beyond the helmet on her clothes. In the cacophony of the hall, Sia's eyes looked around her for a safe place. She saw a corner near the library, quiet from all the prying eyes and piercing words. She heaved a deep sigh as she began to adjust into her secluded area, wishing herself a strength to face yet another day of invisibility. Little did she know that this day would mark the beginning of a huge change in her life. Sia sat at her usual corner in the busy cafeteria, trying to be invisible. Her helmet lay on the table beside her tray, while long-sleeved hands covered her hands. With fork-picking motions, she felt the weight of the gazes and whispers around her. This isolation had become so much a part of her routine. The isolation now comforted her. Martin, a boy known to be kind and sensitive, immediately felt Sia's loneliness from across the room. He remembered her from seeing her on campus, always alone and always covered up with her helmet. His curiosity, coupled with his sense of empathy, was eating at him. With his tray in hand, he meandered across to sit opposite her. "Mind if I join you?" Martin asked, friendly with a smile. Sia finally looked up, quite startled by his presence. She hesitated but nodded finally. He introduced himself and launched into what was new on campus, his classes, and some of his interests. Sia just listened to him, her guard going down a little when she realized he wasn't making fun of her. His friendly demeanor comforted her. It was unusual for her to feel so at ease with any person. They chatted a while, and at no time did Martin ask about the helmet or why she wore it. He respected that, didn't push or ask questions. He began to talk about his life, easing Sia into the conversation as well. She found herself laughing with him, sharing bits and pieces of her own life, all the while keeping the secrets close. By the end of lunch, Sia had a sense of warmth she had not experienced for a long while. Martin seemed so kind and unjudging that he sparked hope within her. Standing up to go, he said, "See you around, Sia." For the first time in a while, Sia felt like she had made a real connection that might just change everything. Weeks became days, and between Sia and Martin, an unlikely friendship started to bud, much to the surprise of their classmates. It was every lunchtime when Martin continued to join Sia, a new pattern that gave her a feeling of comfort she had never expected earlier. They would sit at their corner in the cafeteria, share stories and laughter, and each day their bond grew a little more. Martin was never the kind of man to urge Sia to remove her helmet or reveal her face. He looked beyond her toward her intellect, her sense of humor, and the compassion she bore. For the first time ever, Sia felt accepted and loved. Martin's openness and genuine concern slowly opened the casings she had created around herself. It didn't stop in the cafeteria. Martin would continue inviting her to study groups and other social activities, ensuring she felt part of it all. Sia started living the college life she had not envisioned for herself. She realized that she could feel free with Martin, and with that trust, gained a confidence that she never had before. One afternoon while they were studying at the library, Martin turned to Sia with a reflective expression. "You know, Sia, you got this fantastic mind. The way you think, the way you solve problems, it's incredible." Sia felt her helmet flush as her heart swelled with gratitude. Their talks became more soulful and personal. Sia talked about her childhood, tactfully avoiding the details that might give away too much about her. Martin spoke about his ideals and aspirations. He wanted to make a difference in this world, stand up against injustice, and help people in distress. His passion and idealism touched Sia's heart because they were the same unspoken desires within her. Even though things began to warm up between them, Sia still felt the mockery from the bullies and the pressure of keeping herself hidden. However, it was all tolerable with Martin in her life. He had been light into a darkened world for her, showing her she was not entirely alone. As they parted ways after yet another study session, Martin's eyes looked into hers, sincerity that left her breathless. Sia, you don't have to hide with me. When you're ready, I'll be here waiting, whatever it is. Those words remained stuck in her mind somehow, setting plants of hope and courage in her heart. For the first time, Sia felt that maybe, just maybe, she would let somebody in and be herself. In college, Emma was reputed to be a very mean queen bee. With perfect hair, flawless skin, and a clique of similarly mean-spirited girls surrounding her, she ruled over the hierarchy with no one to stand in her way. Lately, she had started to take notice of just how much more time Martin had been spending with Sia, that mystery helmet girl. She was quite annoyed that Martin, her supposed territory, was giving attention to someone so peculiar. One afternoon, lying with her friends in the courtyard, Emma saw Martin and Sia sitting together, laughing over some kind of private joke. The aggressive surge of jealousy and spite narrowed her eyes. "Who does she think she is, hiding behind that stupid helmet?" Emma sneered to her giggling friends. "We need to show her she can't just walk in here and take away Martin's attention." The next day, Emma and her pack of mean girls began to cook up their scheme. They started the rumor that Sia was deformed or hiding some terrible secret. Naturally, the rumor spread like wildfire, fueling the other kids' curiosity and cruelty at school. Sia felt the many eyes trained on her and could hear mocking laughter as she moved down the hallways. A heavy feeling in her heart, filled with dread. She wasn't satisfied with the gossip. She had to degrade Sia in front of all. She devised a scheme where she cornered her when she was at her most vulnerable moment. Emma and her friends needed the perfect moment, so they watched Sia's movements and studied her routine. They knew Sia normally used some secluded path in the gardens just to avoid the crowded main corridors. One day, as Sia walked along a quiet path in the garden, Emma and her friends ambushed her. They moved in on her from every side, cutting off any way of retreat. Emma stepped forward. There was something very mean in her eyes. "What is this, Sia?" she said, her voice full of poison. "Afraid to let your hair down?" Sia's heart began to race as the fear and panic suddenly became too much to bear. She tried to push them away, but they would not let her be. In one quick, mean jerk, Emma pulled the helmet off Sia's head. There were gasps all around as Sia's beautiful face was revealed, radiant in the sun with her rich, dark skin. The shock and awe of it all held everyone frozen. Well, everyone but Sia, who felt her humiliation and pain wash over her like a wave. With tears streaming down her face, Sia turned and fled through the garden, from which the mocking laughter followed her. To Emma, it was a job well done, with a smirking expression on her face. In continued running, Sia failed to note the horrified expression of regret upon Martin's face as he watched the scene from afar. Humiliation at being unmasked haunted Sia as she ran from the garden. Her eyes were blurry from tears and she barely noticed where she was going. All she knew was that she had to run away. As she ran through the campus of her college, the only things that came to her mind were the reactions of her classmates. Gasps, murmurs, shock, and then laughter. It was her worst nightmare come true. She finally reached the most secluded corner of the library and collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Emotions swirled inside her, hurt, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal. How could they be so mean? Of course, she knew people could be cruel, but this was a whole new degree of heartlessness. Helter-skelter, Martin was running desperately. He had witnessed the entire scene and felt angry, yet helpless. He searched the entire campus, calling out her name, in a most desperate need of meeting her and being by her side in such a miserable state. He couldn't believe the cruel thing that Sia had gone through, and his heart went out to her. After what seemed like eternity, Martin finally saw Sia seated at the far end of the library. She looked so small, so fragile. Her shoulders heaved silently as she wept. He got up warily so as not to give her a jump. "Sia," he said tenderly, his voice full of pity. She turned, her face streaked with tears, a picture of pain and fear. "Sia," I am so sorry, Martin continued, sitting down beside her. What they did is inexcusable. But let me tell you this. I'm here for you. I do not care about the helmet, what others think. I care about you. Sia's eyes searched his face for any sign of compassion or lies, but there was only concern and love. Her heart softened, and she began to feel just a glimmer of hope. Martin, I don't know what to do, she admitted, shaking her voice. Martin squeezed her hand gently in his. We'll get through this together, he said. You're stronger than what you feel you are, Sia, and you definitely are not alone. That weight was off her shoulders. For the first time since unmasking, she felt solace. Sia knew she could stand anything that came next if she had Martin by her side. He gave her the strength to stand in front of her fears and find her identity all over again with his unending support. That evening, Sia knew it was time to stop hiding. She just couldn't give in to the bullies and let them win at everything she was going to do. Sia wanted to go back to college, not as the helmeted girl whom everybody whispered about, but as herself. It was quite a scary thought until Martin came through. Now that Sia felt revitalized by his words of goodwill, she stood poised to face the world head-on and show them the real Sia. Sia spent the next few days reflecting. She rarely left the house and was avoiding the campus because she needed to collect her thoughts and get up the nerve to be in the world without her helmet. Every day Martin would visit her. Always supportive and encouraging, he believed in her when she couldn't, and it got her through the most tenebrous moments. With the help of Martin, Sia began to see herself in a different light. She realized the real strength wasn't in concealing, but in being who she was. It was time to reclaim this identity and face prejudices and bullying up front. She wanted to rip off the layers she had used to protect herself and show the confident, resilient person inside her. Sia spent hours in front of the mirror, trying out different styles and various looks. She embraced her natural beauty by flowing her hair and wearing clothes that brought out her bubbly personality. She could practice speaking in front of the mirror, seeing in her mind how she would walk across the college halls with her head held high. The day had finally come. Sia was scared, yet she found determination within herself to do it. Standing at the very entrance of the college, she took a deep breath. Martin stood beside her, and his reassuring presence lent her that final push. "You've got this, Sia," he said with a proud smile. As Sia walked through the college gates, all heads turned toward her. There were whispers everywhere. Indeed, the change was astounding. In place of a helmeted figure, veiled in mystery, was a sure-footed, drop-dead, gorgeous young woman who stood for strength and self-confidence. Her rich, dark skin glowed with the sun, and sharp features were framed by her flowing mane. Their jaws dropping in shock, neither the students nor any faculty could fit the Sia they knew into their minds with the beautiful individual standing in front of them. Fronted by Emma, all smugness had now been replaced with shocked expressions on the faces of the group of bullies. It just took the breath out of their previous cruelties, Sia's bravery and makeover being quite undeniable. Sia's walk down her college's corridor was silent proof of her newfound confidence and self-acceptance. She no longer hid. With the realization that she is not defined by how she looks, but by who she was as a person, and with the strength she carried inside, she was ready for whatever lay ahead. At her side was Martin, and new friends she made. People who admired her braveness, so she felt invincible. By the end of the day, the topic of Sia's transformation was hot on the college campus. Her story was now no more of a mysterious girl hidden behind a helmet. Instead, it was one of a brave young lady standing against prejudice for all the right reasons and reclaiming her identity. She inspired change in many people, in their hearts and minds, and her journey was only just beginning. Well, in a move that might be of interest to many, Sia now knew that the time had come to reveal the full depth of her story. With all the buzz around her transformation, a platform was created, and she felt resolved to use it against the still deeper issue of racism and prejudice. It was with the support of Martin and Dr. Thompson that Sia organized a special assembly to tell her story and invited students and faculty members. The auditorium was abuzz as all eyes turned to one spot, everyone apparently ready to learn the mystery behind Sia's journey. Martin stood beside her, silent and in support. Sia took a deep breath and mounted the stage to face the sea of inquisitive faces. She felt a jumble of fear and determination because she knew this moment could be the tipping point for everything. "Thank you all for being here," Sia began, voice clear. "Now let me share with you why I wore that helmet and why I hid myself from the rest of the world for such a long time." She was quiet for a few moments, letting her words sink in. "I am Sia Anderson, and I happen to come from a very rich family. However, this choice about disguise wasn't about money. It was everything about understanding and challenging the prejudice and racism that our society still holds against the rest of us." The auditorium gasped in unison when Sia revealed her true identity. "I wanted to see how deep the biases ran, how people treated me when they thought I was different." She explained how she had wanted to experience life as someone judged solely on appearance, and what I found was heartbreaking. She spoke of bullying, isolation, and cruelty. "But I also found the kindness and friendship in places one would not think possible," she said, nodding at Martin, who smiled back in encouragement. "Martin saw beyond the helmet and became my friend when I needed one the most. His support showed me that there is hope, that change is possible." Sia's words struck a chord in everyone present. In the room, many students shifted uncomfortably in their seats, reflecting on their actions and attitudes. Emma sat at the front row, her face flushing with guilt as she looked down at her hands. "I didn't just want to expose the ugliness of prejudice," Sia went on. "I wanted to inspire change. I wanted to show that we can be better, that we can accept and love people for who they are, not what they look like." It was silent, with everybody perhaps reflecting on their consciences. Sia's courage and sincerity pierced through the superficial judgment and prejudices which had coated her interaction. She laid her soul naked and planted seeds of change. As Sia finished speaking, a wash of relief and empowerment washed over her. "We all have the ability to make a difference," she said. "Let's use that ability to build a more inclusive, compassionate world." The audience applauded, and Sia felt tears of gratitude well up in her eyes. She had faced her fears and come out stronger. Her journey became a catalyst for transformation within her, into one for each person who listened to her story. And with Martin by her side, she had newfound friends, all ready for the next step in this fight against prejudice. The assembly had left everybody in a deep impact. Discussions regarding Sia's revelation, her act of bravery, and the naked truths of racism spread like wildfire in the campus. Sia's story opened eyes and hearts to this truth. Now the whole college was wrestling with it. Suddenly, Sia was exposed to all types of people, yet it unleashed a series of unexpected support. Students who had been indifferent or cruel came out to apologize sincerely and repent genuinely. Many wanted to understand her experiences better and learn how they could stand as allies in the fight against prejudice. Emma, the girl who had orchestrated Sia's very first bullying act, was down on her knees in deep repentance. All that confident nature seemed to be replaced with hues of guilt and introspection. She searched for Sia with shaking voice. "Sia, I am so sorry for everything," she said, her eyes full of remorse. "I just didn't realize. I want to do better." Sia locked her eyes on Emma, though her heart was still torn. It had smoothened a bit at the apology. "Thank you for saying that," she returned. "I hope we all learn from this and work toward understanding and kindness." It was then that the administration took note of the change in atmosphere and began supporting Sia's cause by hosting workshops and discussions on diversity and inclusion. A call was extended to Sia to lead the drive by sharing her experiences of advocating for a change. These sessions helped Sia nurture a culture of empathy and respect. She was vocal about what she had gone through and gave others the confidence to come out of their closets, challenge their biases, and stand up for those who were discriminated against. She became an inspiration through leadership and resilience, eventually leading to a campus-wide movement toward greater acceptance. Martin stood beside Sia through all her struggles and offered her unwavering support. Their friendship had blossomed into an invincible team working together to create positive change. The more Sia shared her story, the more fulfilled and purposeful she felt in life. Her struggle had turned into a beacon of hope, proving that even in adversity, positive change could be effected. Sia's act of bravery created a butterfly effect, and the college community was starting to bear fruit from the seeds she had sown. Indeed, the way ahead remained tough, but knowing that her act had made a difference in her life and other lives as well, made her empowered for the road ahead. Through the campus rallying to the diversity and inclusion cause, Sia's life had changed in ways she never thought imaginable. Workshops she led cornerstone a college now fervently dedicated to fighting prejudice and building inclusivity. Her story, at one time a source of pain, had turned into a change agent. As the semester closed, Sia stood again at her podium, this time before a full auditorium of students, faculty, and community members, all there to celebrate the progress that had been made and thank those who had made their movement possible. Her heart swelling with pride, Sia gazed out upon a sea of faces, most of whom had supported her on her journey. Sia spoke, and Martin, always by her side, looked on with wonder. It was a bond that had formed through their shared mission to promote understanding and acceptance. They had become symbols of courage and change, their story now linked to the evolving narrative of the college. As Sia finished speaking, the audience gave her a standing ovation. It wasn't an applause for her alone, but for the sheer community effort building towards something better. She went from a girl who would hide behind a helmet to a leader who motivated people to confront their biases and become the real version of themselves. As the event drew to a close, Sia and Martin walked off across campus, reflecting on how far they had come. "We've come a long way," Martin said, looking over at her with a grin. "I'm really proud of all that we've done." Sia nodded, her heart swelling. "Me too. But this is only the beginning. There's still so much work to do." Her experience had taught Sia that there was a possibility of change, and it started with courage and resilience. With much hope and determination, she looked at the future. She knew her story would continue inspiring others, and that her mission to foster understanding and acceptance would endure. It was with a feeling of satisfaction and excitement that Sia and Martin stepped into this chapter of their lives. Their friendship was now strong evidence to the power of empathy, and to making that much-needed difference one could make while standing up for what was right. Ready for the future, they stood together. Indeed, they knew well they had done enough to bring about lasting change, and even now their journey had not come to an end.